Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, baseball fans. Welcome back to the Barstool Baseball Offseason Show. This is Carl. I'm joined by Klemmer. This is our first off-season show. We've got a ton to talk about, Chris. It's good to see you.
Yes, we do. Yes. Offseason is here. It's always exciting and fun, especially this time. It starts to die down about like February. It gets kind of lame and boring. But yeah, November, December are pretty awesome typically.
Yeah, this is our first recording session from the new Barstool Chicago office. So I should say off the top, the place is incredible. Like whatever you've seen, whatever the social media aspect coverage has been, it's like so underwhelming. It's like going to a hockey game and watching a hockey game on TV. Yeah. Walking in here, it's incredible. And I won't be able to say that enough. So whoever designed this place, not built it, designed it, you're like the best at your fucking job. We just played dodgeball for like 2 hours today. And there's like a golf simulator going. When are you coming out here?
I don't know. But I will say, I thought for a second, some exciting news in the New York office. In the bathroom, I thought for a second the urinal was fixed, but it's not. It's still broken. So, yeah. You guys have a dodgeball court, huh?
I just register that as like a formal complaint right here, right now?
No, I enjoy our broken urinal. It's fun. It adds a little character. I mean, yeah, you guys have dodgeball courts and basketball courts and golf simulators. We have character. We have chips, broken out of the floor here. We have broken urinals. So we, hopefully make up for it with a little grit. We don't have the fancy situation you guys have. We go, we got to tough it out a little bit here. We like that. We're New Yorkers.
We're going to need a nice office for when Craig Counsell comes to visit us. Heaven forbid he got the Mets job and he had to go to that shithole.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys stealing everything from us, huh? What next?
Did you really?
You gonna put that in Chicago?
Were you more surprised with Carlos Mendoza's hire by the Mets or by Craig Counsell to the Cubs?
I guess Craig Counsell to the Cubs really blindsided me. Mendoza was rumored. He had interviewed. I didn't expect it to be a possibility. I assumed because Steve Cohen had spoken before how he thinks the Mets are not like on the job training. He's often said, especially when he had Buck here, that it was the kind of job where you had to have experience before coming over here. And then he hires someone that doesn't have any managerial experience. So I don't really. That was very bizarre. But the Counsell to Chicago, I just completely blindsided me. I had no idea. And it was a cool 45 minutes where I think Jeff Passan tweeted out, Counsell's not going to the Mets. He's going somewhere that already has a manager. And then your brain starts swirling. I had never experienced that in 40 years of professional sports fandom.
You were on the hunt. Who did you think it was?
My first guess, and obviously, it's going to live here, but I'm like, could it be the Yankees? Like, with this, Aaron Boone has been, but I know they love him, but I did not. How about you? Did you think the Cubs were a possibility?
No, I don't. Not at all. Not in the least bit. And I'm really pumped to get into that because this will be my first extended conversation with a baseball guy about it that's been recorded. Because it's the biggest talking point by far. We had the Barstool Invitational last night, obviously in Chicago, the college basketball tournament, and literally all anybody wanted to talk about was Craig Counsell for David Ross. It was unlike any other talking point I've experienced in this job before being out. Comparables would be like, oh, what do you think of Mitch this week? Or do you think the Bears are going to win? Or every single person wanted to talk about Craig Counsell for David Ross. And that's unique from my perspective. Let's set the stage for a second. There's 8 managerial changes this year. That's way more than normal, right?
It is. It isn't. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, in our show a couple months ago. And I had said there hasn't been a single manager fired all season. I know Gabe Kapler got let go with a couple of games left, but there wasn't a manager fired really mid-season. So when that happens, typically, you see a lot of changes in the offseason, and that's what we got.
Okay, so offseason, it's a big number, but for total number of managerial turnover or whatever, it's
not as crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
3 of them are still open. Padres, Brewers, and Astros. The 5 that have been filled are Giants, Cubs. Take it away for me.
Angels, Mets. I'm forgetting one.
Okay, so how would you like to go about these 8 managerial changes?
Whatever you want to do. We could talk about them individually if you want. I mean, we start with the Angels because it's the most ridiculous if you want. The most insane.
Ron Washington back in the dugout. Ron Washington, beloved baseball man, got busted with some cocaine in the Texas Rangers organization.
Yeah.
Was it like 2009, I believe? Probably like the best infield coach of all time. Now, why do you say it's that ridiculous? Because the Angels are just a pile of shit?
Well, the Angels are such a mess of a franchise. I mean, this has been, this has been an ongoing struggle for them. I was talking with Smitty, and it's not the only one to bring it up, but the Angels are such a train wreck that they need to start over, obviously. And Nick Castellanos was rumored to be on the trading block today. It's been kind of a rumor. And Smitty and a couple of people I saw from Philadelphia were like, what if we did a trade for Trout? It's like, that would make a lot of sense for both teams, honestly. It would get the Angels out of that long-term contract with Trout while still having like a major league power hitter there. And then Trout wouldn't have to be the guy in Philadelphia. So if he does get hurt, does have these injuries come up, it's not like it's destroying the entire franchise. I mean, the Phillies would be able to survive without Mike Trout for a 40-game stretch, say.
So what's the package? Mike Trout for Castellanos straight up?
I mean, that was just kind of the talking point. Obviously, some money might need to be, changing hands there, yada, yada, yada. I guess the other issue with Ron Washington is he's going to be 72 years old next year. So it's just like, what are we doing? Like, if you're the Angels, like, what are we doing? What are you doing?
I can understand why the Angels would want to do it. I don't understand why Ron Washington wants to do it. I think if the Angels are trying to if they're hitting the reset button, Ron Washington's a good guy to have in the clubhouse for that. If they have to go through this, we're talking about trading Trout and starting from scratch, like before you can even like build something up, you have to like completely burn it down. I think Ron Washington would be like a good guy for that transition period. They'd probably pay him handsomely. He's probably realistic about what he'd be getting himself into. And he's probably bored with the Braves. He's probably got great relationships with those guys, I guess. And I would imagine he's done enough for those guys, and he takes a look at the Braves and is like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having my own thing again. How old is Brian Snitker?
He's 62, 63. He's younger than Washington. I mean, everyone's younger than Washington. I mean, like, what are we doing? Okay, so he gets his own thing. He's not getting a Porsche. He's getting a 1982 Ford Taurus that has 3 wheels. Like, I don't really, like, your own thing kind of sucks.
Yeah, but he's a baseball guy. He doesn't think like that.
No?
I don't think I don't know that the sense of confidence and, we're going to play hard. We're going to play together. Anything can happen. I think that is much more how Ron Washington is. And I think it's a good opportunity for the front office to reset and figure out, because they're going to have to gut that organization. If we're talking about trading Trout, and I agree with you, that would be awesome if he went to the Phillies. If Mike Trout got traded to the Phillies, he would love to, by the way. I'm sure he's angling and pushing for that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of any way. The Angels just never make sense to me as a franchise. And now we talk about resetting. This isn't, for them to reset is going to be a major issue because they don't have a farm system.
Yeah, Moreno needs to sell. Like when I say reset, like that whole thing needs to get torn down. But
yeah, why would anyone? I guess you're like, why would Ron Washington want to do it? Why would anyone want to be involved with this? This whole thing is toxic. I don't know. The Angels are such a mess. Like they are in such a. I can't think. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. I can't think of a team in worse shape, a franchise in worse shape than the Angels right now. The only comp I have is the Expos. For 2 years, they were owned by Major League Baseball. They didn't have an owner, and that was complete chaos. Like, Omar Minaya was the GM, and, like, no one knew what to do. No one knew what their budget was. It was just a complete... They were in total purgatory. Other than that, I can't think of a franchise that's in worse shape right now than the Angels right now that I've ever seen.
How can you put them behind the Athletics?
The Athletics have a plan. It's not a plan I agree with. It's not a plan I like. But they're going to move to Las Vegas, and they will spend some money, and their fans will come out. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, not for people in Oakland. They got fucked. But there is, for that franchise, there is a plan. I'm curious to see what the Angels' plan is, because I don't know.
I'm sick and tired of people complaining about this Oakland Athletics move to Vegas. Like, it obviously sucks that the ball club's leaving. But is it 30, like, as an adult male, as I'm getting older, is it south 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, looking into the rest of my life, if the Cubs left Chicago and they had to go to one place, like, you talking about a trip to Vegas every year? Not too shabby.
Oh, that's not fair, Carl. You don't mean that. So you can't watch
I absolutely
you
don't
can't watch
mean
a
that.
team anymore. You're a season ticket holder. If you're someone that loves a team,
God.
you're someone that has like a baby or something. You're like, I want my baby to be a fan of this team. Like, it's generational. It's been there since 1968. That's tough.
Yeah, no, that's pure. I don't know, parody set. I wasn't serious at all about that, but I would like a trip to Vegas to see the A's. That sounds like a nice time. Like when your team plays the A's in Vegas, that should be a good time.
That sounds awesome. I'll definitely do that. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is. The A's, look, I don't agree with what they did. It's not great. The whole thing's kind of a mess, but there's a plan. There's no plan for the Angels. They did a win now thing. They still had a losing record. Like, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know. I don't know.
Can you at least say good luck to Ron Washington? I will. I like that guy a lot. I love that he's in the dugout. I think it's great that he has influence over, another crop of like young major leaguers that are coming up. He's a sweet dude. Everybody he works with enjoys working with him. Every infielder, I shouldn't say every infielder, but he's great with infielders. All his infielders.
Yeah, good luck, man. Like, yeah, good luck. Sure. I mean, he doesn't seem to be a bad guy.
You don't respect Ron Washington, do you?
I don't think he's a particularly good manager.
All right.
I think he's a good coach.
You can be a good coach and a bad manager.
I wouldn't say bad. He brought the Rangers to 2 World Series, so I'm not going to say he's bad. I don't think he's particularly good. I think there's like a nuance there. I also think like he hasn't managed in a long. I know he's been in baseball, but he hasn't managed in a long time. I always wonder about that, especially when these guys get really old. I don't know. I don't really get the hire. Like from the Angels, I try to hire a young guy that I don't know. I think I hire someone young and have the manager grow with the team as they get better. Hire this weird Band-Aid for 2 years, 3 years. I don't know how long Washington's going to be able to manage. It just seems strange to me. But I don't know. I don't know. The whole thing's a mess.
I'll say it again. Good luck to Ron Washington.
Sure. Good luck to Ron Washington. I don't know what that means, but sure.
It means I hope that it's a good experience. He's leaving the Atlanta Braves. They're winning 100 fucking games a year. He's going to the playoffs. Life's probably awesome. You win every single series. There's no stress and pressure. You coach third base, and you work with Austin Riley and Matt Olson and Ozzie Albies. Like, that's a great job.
Yeah.
It's a fucking awesome job. And he's walking away from it into a shitstorm that I think is obvious is a shitstorm. So that's why I'm saying good luck to him.
Yeah.
Okay. The Astros job's still open. That's because Dusty Baker retired. So we don't have to spend too much time on that. I don't think they're going to hire. I would be stunned if they spent more than a couple, like $2 million on a manager.
So I agree, but I guess so. Okay. So I think I agree with you. But here's the thing that I thought would have happened by now. I thought A, there'd be a plan in place, and B, I kind of thought you'd see maybe like Joe Espada just like, all right, Dusty steps down a week later. Joe Espada's our guy. That didn't happen. So I don't know what they're going to do.
Why did you think they were going to do that? Jim Crane doesn't do shit like that.
I guess not. Maybe not. I guess you're right. I don't know. I guess because Espada's been named as a candidate for so long by so many teams, and I assumed, obviously erroneously, that was kind of the idea. Was like Dusty Baker is another old guy that's there for a winning franchise, and he's only going to be able to do it for so long. And then they have kind of the heir apparent right there. But I guess that might not be the plan. I don't know. I was surprised by that as well.
This is my least intriguing manager vacancy. Like, whoever gets the Astros job, I'm not really...
Oh, I disagree.
Well, that clubhouse is going to manage itself. You're walking into a clubhouse that needs very little managing.
Maybe. But is a team that's going to, I wrote a blog how I think the Astros dynasty is over, and I do sort of believe that, I do believe that it's over as far as them, winning World Series, but I still think they're going to be competitive next year, where, a team like the Brewers, they're going to be really bad next year. The Angels are bad. So whoever the manager of the Astros pick, I think is going to have a lot more importance next year than these other teams we're talking about.
Okay, you're right. Maybe the Angels isn't that sexy of a pick. The Brewers storyline is awesome. The Brewers storyline is insane. I want to spend some time on this. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Let's
strange.
talk about the Brewers and the Cubs.
Okay.
I would love to see the Brewers sign David Ross.
Yeah.
Now, I know how he's allegedly extremely competitive. I would imagine he's not taking this very well. If we're all surprised, how surprised do you think he was? So,
the only thing with maybe he got some inkling that he could be in trouble that we didn't know. I don't know. I don't know how surprised he was. I don't know. He seemed like he was surprised, though. I have a question, Carl. So typically, it's been kind of known as an unwritten rule that if you're a manager, you never apply for a job or you never interview for a job that somebody's already sitting in. It's kind of a mutual respect kind of thing. It's every sport has this. It's, like I said, kind of like an unwritten rule. You just don't do that because you wouldn't want it done to you. So the fact that Counsell did that, behind Ross's back like that, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty sinister.
It kind of is.
He might not have that much respect for David Ross as a manager. And he might have seen it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than a manager. That's the guy's livelihood. That's a human being.
They played against each other. They were right in that same era together. They would have come up around college era together. I want to say they're almost around the same age. I can't put together a good take on like the mechanics of Counsell interviewing for it while David Ross had the job. It sounds like it's the only job Counsell would have left Milwaukee for. He had a 5-year, $25 million offer or $27 million offer from Brewers. He ended up getting a 5-year, $40 million contract from the Cubs. And the story was that was the place he wanted to go. He's got the 4 young kids.
Yeah.
The New York didn't really make sense unless they were really going to unload the paycheck. And David Stern's press conference struck me that he wanted a break from Counsell. And he wanted more insight into what was going on in the clubhouse and how players were feeling. And he just wanted, share with me. And I think Counsell's not a guy who wants to have that level of transparency with the front office. And it's something David Stearns wants. And so maybe there was more intentionality there to not have Counsell, manage the Mets. Maybe.
I completely agree with you, Carl. Look, if the Mets wanted Counsell, they would have gotten him. They could have offered him 10 years, $100 million. Like, the money is irrelevant to Cohen. The fact that we went in with such a low offer, almost like, we kind of tried, just to say they tried. They almost like putting in this really lowball offer, like knowing they weren't going to get the guy. And that's a blind spot for me. I assumed stupidly that Stearns was coming, so we get Counsell. It's like, well, no, this is Stearns' chance to actually kind of run the franchise. And I keep forgetting, because I am old, that in 2023 baseball, the manager has less and less power than ever before, right? And the GMs are running the show, and the guys are, they're setting in the lineups. And I think David Stearns saw this as his chance to really put a real fingerprint on the entire organization, not just the player personnel moves. And that's something I probably should have saw coming, and maybe we all should have saw coming. And that's exactly what happened. That's why you hire a guy like Mendoza, who is just happy to get the job, who you can completely tell him, listen, you're not going to have to say over anything except for what I tell you have to say over, and that's what you're getting. And that's what Stearns wanted all along, and I was blindsided.
And that's not to say it's a good thing or a bad thing at this point. It could be a great thing at the end of the day. David Stearns could be way better at this than with more control than. He could. That's a possibility.
No idea.
Right. It could go the other way too, and it could be average. I don't think it's fair to judge what the Mets have, I don't think it's fair to judge the Mets negatively for hiring Carlos Mendoza because we just haven't seen him manage yet. Now, if you want to say it's atypical, you'd rather see someone who's more seasoned, that's fine. But as far as saying Carlos Mendoza is or isn't a good big league manager, he isn't, we haven't seen him yet. And David Stearns could be awesome with this type of partnership. It could go south too. But I would be as optimistic as possible because that's on the table. That's an it is relatively realistic that David Stearns is still getting better at this job.
I know one thing about Carlos Mendoza, and that is and Hubs told me this, before every game, he goes and sprays 40 sunflower seeds in the field in honor of the 40-man roster. I find this to be such a weird, hardo move. It's is this what we're getting? This is what why? What? That's so weird. It's I don't know, man. I would but at the end of the day, though, how much influence and power is Carlos Mendoza going to have? And look, I understand. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, and myself to some degree, is I like the old way when it was more defined. It's easier as a fan too. It's all right, the GM handles the player personnel moves. the manager handles the clubhouse. That way you can kind of like know who to blame or who to give credit for as a fan. It's just easy. It's just what we know, what we grew up with. And I think people kind of gravitate that naturally because we all have bosses and no one wants to be micromanaged. So we all kind of like understand that and relate to it. But who are we to say necessarily that this is like you said, this is a bad move? Maybe having Stearns, a very bright guy, hold all the cards is a good thing for the Mets. That I don't know. I don't know.
Find out.
Yep.
We know Buck Showalter, who's like the complete opposite of the Carlos Mendoza.
Hmm.
That didn't go particularly well. So
no, and it wore out his welcome. The first year was great. The second year, guys didn't really give a shit. And I think the guys in that clubhouse knew that it's 2023 baseball and the manager has no power. And guys like Jeff McNeil, and I'll single him out because Tommy Pham fucking sure did, were lazy and taking the easy way out. In case people missed it, back in August, Tommy Pham said that Lindor tried hard, Alonso tried hard, and I'm forgetting someone, Nimmo. He said, but the other position players didn't give a shit. Well, you're giving out the last year batting title. That's not an accident. I know there's been a lot of under the radar stuff that McNeil's not popular in the clubhouse. So, you have some of these guys maybe saw that Showalter was powerless and were able to kind of like, fuck this guy. Where I don't know if they'll pull that shit with David Stearns that much more involved. We'll see.
Is McNeil a California guy?
I don't know. I'm terrible at stuff like that.
Okay. Because California guy, not to like, generalize and stereotype baseball players and hurt their feelings, but like Cali guys really typically, generally speaking, don't go as hard. Like Alonso's a Florida guy. That guy plays baseball very hard. He just eats fastballs for breakfast and all he wants to do is tee work and get better. Like McNeil, slick back hair, a little bit of a cocksucker attitude, and I mean that in a positive way, like the way a scout would say it on a baseball field. Like he plays the game hard.
He does, and to his credit, he didn't miss many games this year due to injury, so you gotta give him credit for that. But yeah,
I meant to say like at bats, like his at bats are hard. He doesn't give his at bats away. But then I guess why do they call him lazy? Then is he just not getting
that's
prepared?
The thing, and that's what's tough when you have kind of like one guy pointing fingers, and we don't know if Pham has some ulterior motive. There's something about Pham that isn't well liked, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? I don't know. All we can read between the lines, but I have heard enough about McNeil. It strikes me as odd.
So Carlos Mendoza, would you say you'd rather have Stephen Voigt from the Guardians? He just got hired by the Guardians, first-year manager, 2 first-year managers. Would you rather have a Voigt, former player, beloved catcher, kind of grinder, gritty, weird guy, or I don't know. That's where I'm kind of like, who are their first? No, I mean
managers? It's fair, right? Like, what kind of first-year manager do you want? Do you want the guy that's gone up the coaching tree? So then we're talking like a Buck Showalter back in the day. Like he never played a major league game. Carlos Mendoza, you have those guys. Or do you want someone like a David Ross or a Brad Ausmus or Stephen Vogt? Every individual is different. That's hard to tell. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm pumped to see
Vogt, yeah.
Vogt. I'm terrible. I'm pumped to see him manage though. I want to see what this Guardians team looks like. I think he kind of fits that.
I have a takeaway with this Guardians move here. So they were paying Terry Francona, I believe, $4 to $5 million a year. Okay, great. And Francona was the highest paid manager in baseball for a while. Are the cheapo Guardians going to then put this money back into the player pay? Like, are they going to now spend money, that extra $5 million on a starting pitcher next year? Or God forbid, offense? Or are they just going to pocket that like they always do and just take the cheap way out? Which is, I fear what they will do.
They're going to pocket it and keep it and take it. And it should bother people because they are one of the richest families in baseball.
That AL Central, I want just a quick breakaway about the AL Central for a second. Looks very interesting to me. We have the Tigers make a small but interesting move with the Mark Hanna trade. And I know it's not a big, oh my God, Shohei Ohtani or, the Joe Carter, Roberto Alomar trade. We're not talking that. But it is interesting that the Tigers seem to be maybe potentially spending money next year. And they weren't that far away this year. The AL Central is so weak. And then you have, the Royals are the Royals. I think they're still a couple years away. They still need some work. The Twins win the division, win a playoff round, and then they've come out publicly already and said, hey, we're actually going to spend less money next year. We're not going to spend any more. And they already have a free agent like Sonny Gray out there that basically said we're not going to, Phillies are now rumored with him. They're not going to resign Sonny Gray. They're going to basically drop their payroll at $20 million. And I don't know. And you wonder, is there a pathway for the Tigers? And we know, unless the Guardians spend money, which I don't expect they will, is there a pathway the Tigers could win this division next year? I think there is. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. They've got good young players, and they were competitive down, when healthy. I think they're a competitive team. I think their schedule is also, I think there's something unique about them because I think they play, I think America's is a little bit of an advantage if they're good. It's kind of a weird place to play.
Yeah.
Some day games. The Tigers have a good backbone, I think, to go out and win 87, 88 games next year. I think I'm encouraged too by them. Jason Benetti is a White Sox announcer, left the White Sox to go to the Tigers. That's kind of an encouraging thing too, that they fired. And did they fire Matt Shepard? I know they moved, they're parting ways with their play-by-play guy to bring in a division play-by-play guy. That says something about the ownership and the people calling the shots.
There's also something to be said for the year after a legend leaves. So I'm going way back here because I'm on the show and this is what I do. 1963, Stan Musial retires. What happens in 1964? Cardinals win the World Series. 1993, George Brett retires. There was a strike year in 94, but what happened? The Royals were a very good team that year. They would have made the playoffs. I think there's something to be said for, especially in modern baseball, taking this huge salary off the books. This wasn't necessarily the case with Musial, although Musial was at one point the highest paid player in the game. And be able to reallocate those funds to other players. What you cost for Cabrera, you get a Mark Canha and then another $10 million player. They're going to have so much more value than Cabrera was. I understand why he was there, and it's nice that he said goodbye, but he was a huge detriment on the win-loss side of the ledger. I don't know. I think the Tigers are one to watch this year, and I might put a little future on them winning that division.
I think the Cardinals went to the World Series the first year after Pujols left. They lost to the Red Sox, I believe.
Might be right.
2013. Maybe.
I was talking more about a legend retiring, but that's a fair point. Legend retiring. That's why Brett, Musial. It doesn't always work that way for sure. I mean, Ripken retired. The Orioles still stunk. So that doesn't always work that way. But it is interesting.
Yeah. Just closing the book on Voit here for a second. I don't, in the AL Central, my kind of closing thoughts on this division. I don't think the Twins need to spend money to win the division next year. So they might be too transparent in saying we're not going to add. They might just be showing their cards too much. They really, if they're returning the same player, the same bulk of the lineup, and they led Major League Baseball in nearly every starting pitching category last year. They were first or second. Name it. First or second. And the best you can do if you want to beat me is third or fourth.
Yeah, they were.
They were utterly dominant in starting pitching categories. So to let Sonny Gray walk.
And you'd be getting Royce Lewis for a whole year. So you got that. And then the other plus.
White Sox stink. White Sox are absolute trash. I agree with you on the Royals about being at
Carlos
least a year or two away.
Correa could only get better. I think he's going to have a better year next year. I mean, I assume, unless he gets hurt, I guess. But he was so bad this year. I can't. He seemed to pick it up as the playoffs. I have to imagine he's going to have at least something of a bounce back year. So you're right. I think the Twins can be very competitive this year. That's what makes it so frustrating. The owners are cheap, not going to spend money, of course. Typical bullshit owners being owners. Because if they spent $60 million on two superstars, they would have a dynasty there, but they won't. That's what they do.
There's a couple other things I want to talk about with the managerial changes. I do want to spend some time on David Ross and Craig Counsell, a little bit deeper for a second. But first, Bob Melvin left the Padres to go to the Giants and had said he wanted to manage the Giants. That stings a little bit. I know things are sour with the Padres. I know it didn't go the way he wanted to over those 2 years, especially this year, 82 and 82 with the $258 million payroll is, it's just so far below expectations. But then to go to the Giants and say that every time he managed against the Giants, he wanted to manage for the Giants, or he'd look across the dugout and picture himself in there. Bob Melvin's a great manager. I don't know if he's good enough to say stuff like that. I don't know if he's had enough success to warrant like rubbing it in the Padres' face. He could have just kept his mouth shut about it. But either way, like some more drama here. Interdivision drama.
Melvin's an odd guy. He wore out his welcome pretty quick in Arizona, and a lot of it was personality issues. It's interesting. Him and Bochy have similar playing careers. Both were backup catchers for a good portion of their career. Both were backup catchers for the Giants, I believe, if I'm right, or was Bochy with the Padres? Whatever. On the West Coast, backup catchers. I don't know. Melvin's obviously a good manager. I don't know if I'd say he's great. And I don't know. I don't know. The way the team kind of just quit on him this year was very bizarre. It was only his second year in San Diego, and they just it's very similar to the Mets. It's very weird. I don't know. The whole Bob Melvin thing is weird to me. I don't know if... I keep hearing the Giants going to spend a lot of money this offseason. They are linked to a lot of high-priced free agents. It sounds like they're really willing... I think they understand they don't have any superstars. They have a team with a lot of depth and no great players. So maybe they'll be on the upswing. I don't know. But yeah, the Bob Melvin thing, I don't know. That was odd as well.
Yeah, I think Bob Melvin just couldn't handle the superstars. He had a hard time with Tatis Jr., Soto. And Soto's probably easy to manage, relatively speaking, but I don't know how good he was at bringing everybody together. 82 and 82 with that roster.
Yeah.
I mean, we should look back on this. Yeah, I know. Sorry.
The Padres are an interesting team in that they're also they're hemorrhaging money. Blake Snell's gone. They keep, we talked, I think, on the last time we were all talking about how Juan Soto is probably going to get traded. That team, I don't know. That National League West is unusual. I think the Dodgers are going to spend a ton of money. They only have $125 million on the books right now for next year, so they've been linked to a lot of guys. I don't know. That National League West could look very different next year. The only thing we know, of course, is the Rockies will be horrible because they're always horrible, and they have another team with no plan or no future, just dying out there. But the other four teams could be interesting.
Yeah, I think the Padres could be very good next year. I think they're with the core of that lineup. If they keep Juan Soto, which Scott Boras had alluded to that was their plan. He said in a press conference that it was every indication for the Padres and their behind closed doors that the Padres had every indication to keep Juan Soto. They wanted to trade Cronenworth. I think that opens the door for Ha-Sung Kim to get regular playing time and be your everyday second baseman, which was kind of a question mark when they signed Xander Bogaerts. But I don't understand them because they had that $50 million loan to cover payroll, but they're reckless in free agent. Like they still added Xander Bogaerts for almost $300 million in 11 years, but then they take out a $50 million loan. Like that's crazy to me. And Peter Seidler's one of the wealthier owners in baseball whose net worth's like $3-4 billion, private equity hedge fund guy. Like he's obviously got money. I just don't understand how that Padres would
nothing about the Padres makes sense to me. I think like 5 years from now, someone's going to write this book and it all makes sense finally. Like, oh, that's why things were so chaotic and dysfunctional because of X, Y, and Z. I don't know what they are. I don't know what's happening there, but it's a mess. And I would not see. I don't know what the Padres will be next year, but I don't think they'll be very good. Maybe they'll be okay. I think losing Blake Snell and then even losing Cronenworth, some of these guys. Like, I love that they're still stuck with Matt Carpenter for another year, which is pretty funny. He's the worst free agent signing. They also lost, not a huge guy, but like Seth Lugo, he's a free agent. I know he's not but anytime you lose like quality major leaguers, it's tough.
He's former Met Seth Lugo. Fraud, Enron. That's what I think of when I think of the Padres.
It has kind of a weird aftertaste to it, right? I keep waiting for that story to be like, oh, yeah, like I said, this is dysfunctional, but everything around it is seems like, I don't know. Good luck to the next manager. I don't know who it's going to be. Good
luck. Giants get their guy in Bob Melvin. They must have wanted him. They must have. Interdivision team swapping is crazy to me. I can't believe we got two of those this year. And that's why I want to ask you this with David Ross. I lost sleep about this the other night. If you're watching this on YouTube, you notice under my left eye, just heavy bags. Can't sleep. Why is it? Because simple proposition. if Seiya Suzuki catches that fly ball against the Atlanta Braves, is David Ross still the
Not
manager of
only
the
that,
Chicago Cubs?
so yes, the Diamondbacks never make the World Series. Maybe the Phillies win the World Series or Goose get there. That is the butterfly effect that every single moment of the National League postseason, and maybe even the World Series, was affected by that one play. And it's wild. And that's what makes baseball so great. We have this long season. And it was one play that affected number of franchises, number of careers, numbers of how we view players, not only for this season, but for history.
$7 million, whatever that offer. That's a lot of money to manage the Milwaukee Brewers. We criticize the Brewers a lot, but them opening up $5 million for Craig Counsell, that's still a decent offer. If you're the Brewers ownership, I understand them being pissed about it because that's a good enough offer to think that you're going to keep Craig Counsell. Everything considered, the idea that the Cubs would fire David Ross to fire him to then go get Craig Counsell behind their backs without them knowing, because you have to. What's the rule? November 1st or 2nd, some early point in November is the checkpoint where you don't have to ask for the team's permission to interview their manager. So the Cubs didn't have to get the Brewers' permission. And that was like a Thursday, and they ended up announcing it on a Monday or something. So the deal got done over the weekend. It sounded like it was just Jed Hoyer and Tom
obviously
Ricketts,
it was very low because we never leaked. So obviously it was pretty small amount of people who were involved with this. No, I mean, I guess you can let the Brewers off the hook for putting in a nice offer for Counsell. But, who do we blame then for the Brewers being cheap for so long? These owners have the money. They're getting so much money in TV rights. They're getting so much money from, whether it be, just having people come to the ballpark. But the bigger thing is the valuations of the team. These teams are worth so much. When they sell, they can all be like, well, we're losing money this year. It's like, well, yeah, maybe you lost $5 million this year, but you're going to get $1 billion when you sell. Like, the team's worth so. That's where that's why it's all bullshit.
$100 billion. I like the move for the Cubs.
I would
as
too.
A Cubs fan, I'm a little, listen, David Ross did a lot with that roster. I think he managed that team. I think they outperformed expectations this year. And he lost his job. This guy got carried off the field in Game 7 of the World Series. Lost his job. They brought him out of the ESPN gig that was paying him handsomely to do Sunday Night Baseball. He's like traveling the world. Like, David Ross likes to get after it too. This is a social guy. This is a guy who's like found his cake job out of baseball retirement. And Theo and Jed were like, "You're the guy to manage what's left of the world, so we need you." And he didn't want to take the job unless they would promise that they'd improve the roster and that they'd spend money. Oh, sure. So he takes the job, leaves ESPN, COVID, and because of the Cubs' financial structure, they couldn't hit free agency for like 2 years. They'd taken on a ton of losses. And this is a completely deeper conversation about like how the way the Cubs operate, but they spend money based off the money that they make on the team. They make a ton of money off that team, so they spend a ton of money on that team. But because of COVID, they ended up laying off like 40% of the employees at Wrigley Field. Cold-blooded stuff. And people said, why don't the Ricketts sell some of their own assets and divest some of their other portfolio to cover it? And the Ricketts didn't want to do it. And that's shitty stuff, right? I think that's shitty stuff because they have the money to do it. But David Ross, I mean, you could call this one of the Ross deals ever because they ended up trading all those guys in 2021. Then they didn't do shit for 2022. They finally gave him something to compete with in 2023, and he takes him a fly ball away from the playoffs. And then they fire you to bring in the division guy that's been running laps around you for the 3 years that you bet, like the 3 full seasons you have been managing. No, you're not good enough. We're just going to go get him in now. So it just a bad taste in my mouth as Ross comes out. And the only thing that will solve any of this is now Craig Counsell has to win the division. And I don't really like having all of this pressure now on a manager where it's like, all right, well, if the Cubs don't win the division next year.
That's not. I only asked you. You have Counsell for a few years. I think you got a few years. Now, one thing, this isn't the first time, in my opinion, the Cubs did a manager kind of dirty because there's a better option on the table. A decade ago, you had Rick Renteria, who was a pretty good manager, and then the second Joe Maddon's available, it's like, oh, see you later, buddy. Well, he was only there a year, I think, with the Cubs. So that was kind of, I don't know, because he was a pretty good manager for you guys.
Yeah, but Ricky Renteria got his chance with the White Sox, and it wasn't, it was okay. They ended up getting rid of him for Tony La Russa.
I don't know. I guess, but Counsell, I think the Counsell move is great. Are the Cubs going to win the division next year? I don't know. Maybe the Cardinals could make some improvements, maybe. I don't know. That team was weird. They're going to spend money this year. I don't know. The Brewers are in sell mode, despite what the owner is like, we're going to be good next year. All right. No, you're not. Brandon Woodruff's out there. I mean, what are we doing? And then, the other teams division, are they going to be competitive? I don't know. The Cubs could get it, but I don't know. The Cubs also are not, as they're currently situated right now, are not a good Major League Baseball team. They're okay, but they need to go out and get guys. But maybe they'll spend some more money this year. Maybe that's what they promised Counsell. I don't know.
There's definitely spent a lot of money. I mean, that's a whole buzz. Is that we're just getting ready.
Then I don't see why you guys wouldn't win the division.
There's supposed to be a flurry of moves, but that's where the pressure comes from. Now that this first chip has fallen in the way that it's done, in the way that it's fallen, now this whole other chain of events has to occur. They have to go spend a ton of money. They have to be competitive. They have to be healthy. They have to have a great season instead of this consistent building and getting better year after year, which is what I liked under David Ross and had seen over the long run. Now there's this pressure and this element of like, okay, well, we better be Shohei Ohtani or Yamamoto. Don't give me Aaron Nola. I don't even want to talk about Bellinger yet. I'm talking about the very top of free agency. You have to go get one of the top two guys without any questions asked. And you have to be willing to overpay and do whatever it takes to get those guys. So that's the message that I'm taking away from them going out. Because it's, again, if David Ross resigned, retired, whatever, it's a big enough story that they went out and got Counsell. But to fire David Ross, after all that stuff I was talking about, bringing him in, the contacts, you're here, we're going to spend, like nothing went this guy's way. And then finally he gets the club in a position to go to the playoffs, and it's a fly. And ultimately you can look back on the season and say it was they're a routine fly ball away to an above average right fielder. And fucker dropped it. Job gone. This is setting up for some more heartbreak. So
was it a blessing in disguise he drops the fly ball? You guys weren't going to do any damage in the playoffs anyway. Most likely. Who knows? You never know. I mean, the Diamondbacks went further than I thought, but let's just assume they get knocked out early. And now you have a great manager, one of the best managers in baseball. You have ownership that's ready. You were good enough where the ownership believes in the team, and maybe now you guys are loaded for bear.
It's a good counterpoint. Yeah. And now the Brewers are significantly weaker. He had held the Brewers together forever. Now they're toast. Now the Reds get to take their spot.
The Reds gonna, the Reds. It sounds like they're going to spend a little bit of money. I mean, I don't know how much they'll actually spend, but if a guy like Hunter Green can take that leap forward a little bit, if Andrew Abbott doesn't regress, and then you have, the rest of that lineup that I think can get better and better. I think Elida Cruz is going to get better. I think he's going to learn to lay off some of these pitches. They're going to work with him. If he's willing to put in the work, he has the talent to be incredible. So maybe the Reds end up being that team, that Reds-Cubs rivalry is something we see for the next 5 years. The Pirates obviously are not there yet.
The Pirates are a long way.
Yes and no. Yes, you're probably right, Carl, but no, they shouldn't be. If the owners spent the money, then they wouldn't be, but they're not going to. So you're right.
Which means, to me, the Cubs have to go spend. I put him second in my Shohei Ohtani power rankings. I think they're going to offer him everything they can. And I think it's an extremely compelling case. If you're familiar with some of the recent free agent signings, the Cubs have talked at length about the Cubs' self-improvement prospect and their player development, individual programming, and how they help you as an individual get to your best skill set and all this stuff. And a lot of guys talk about it. I had them second. I had Dodgers 1, Cubs 2.
Yeah, I had the
Mariners 3. Now, I think the Mariners just have a limit on what they're going to be willing to spend for Ohtani. And I think but I don't think he's going to. I think for him to play for the Mets would be I I think the balance is money and playoffs. Money, playoffs. Money and competition.
I know that.
I think the Mets would have to overspend.
And Cohen doesn't like to get free agents that have qualifying offers attached. By the way, we have 7 free agents who got qualifying offers. I mean, I don't know if it's worth talking about. All of them are going to decline it. There's no Jock Peterson in this group. I think it's pretty.
Name all 7, please.
I can't right now. It's been a long day. There's 7 of them. What's it? Aaron Nola, Josh Hader, Ohtani. Forgetting. Oh, Bellinger.
Matt Chapman.
All these guys. So that's the thing, too. You guys got to figure out what you can do about Bellinger, too. Or at least replace that bat.
Christopher Morel got announced to be playing a lot of first base moving forward, which tells me that they're just starting to get the fan base ready. Cody Bellinger, they'll give him an offer, but they're not going to give him the highest offer, and he's going to end up taking the highest offer. So
he's going to give him
a competitive offer.
Like a lot.
Yeah, he's going to get like 7 years, $200 million. And that'd be an insane thing to do because he's not playing center field in the long run for the Cubs. Pete Crow Armstrong's the long-term center. If they didn't have Pete Crow Armstrong, I'd be standing on top of a mountain right now screaming at the top of my lungs, Cody Bellinger's a center fielder. And you can't let him play anywhere else because he likes playing here and he's good here. But you have a guy that's going to cost you $750,000 and you go spend that money on the starting pitching. And you need starting pitching depth. And you need starting pitching that can shut down other major league lineups. They don't have that. So that's what I would do. But I'm sitting here talking to you, so what the fuck do I know?
Yeah.
It's a good question. Why do you have the Mets above
just
the Cubs?
The money. I just think that's the only reason financially. The Cubs are not. I'm not ruling the Cubs out by any stretch. I think the Cubs have a much better chance than the Angels. That's for sure. I think the Dodgers. It's the Dodgers and Mariners to kind of lose to some extent. I think, but we'll. I don't know. We'll see. That's going to be. I'm very curious. Not only where he signs, but when he signs, because that could be a domino that sets off a chain reaction. Like if a bunch of teams are not going to sign a free agent because they're trying to get Ohtani, and then have all this money once Ohtani signs, then you could see a waterfall of free agents just sign instantly. Or are people not going to wait and say, "Fuck it, I don't really have a chance with this guy anyway. I'm going to go make a move for Bellinger right now." Like if you're the Yankees, you're probably not going to get Ohtani anyway. I don't know. Maybe I'm just told. Maybe they do. I'm just ballparking. So maybe you're like, all right, Ohtani's not even on our radar. Let's go get Bellinger because we have fewer suitors now because everyone's waiting for Ohtani. I don't know. I'm really curious how this all develops.
I think Bellinger signs early. I think he gets a big deal early. I think he's better off.
I think you're right.
The sooner Boris wants to get this dude paid and get him out. He had a great. People are going to hate me for saying this. He had a great season for the Cubs. Just go look at the batted ball data and some of the adjustments that Cody Bellinger made. Cut down on the strikeouts, put the ball in play. His barrel rate's exceptional. His average exit velocity went down. Everything from his MVP season, like people look at him at that same MVP level. When he was at that MVP level, if you had 100 fucking big leaguers in a room, he was the best one. He was 99th percentile on everything. You look now, there's stuff where it's like, all right, he's bottom, he's bottom 10%, or he's 50%, or he's top 60, so like it's not that he's 1% across the board, everything that's going to. Now, if he was, again, I'd say go give that guy all the money, have him play first base then. But there's a lot of troubling things here. And I would say, as a baseball fan, and this time of year, like a good thing is to be skeptical about free agents and the money you're giving these guys. Like these are the people this is like the one opportunity you have. Jason Hayward set the organization back for years because it was a bad deal. Like I'm a little gun shy about
look at like the Mets with Starling Marte. Like we have this guy in the books now for a long time. And not only is it expensive, but he's also someone you count on. So then like obviously he was so good in 2022, but then when 2023 when he's a non-factor, it's not like we had a replacement ready to go because we were counting on this guy. Not only financially, but also from a roster standpoint. So, this is huge. A guy like Bellinger, who has a difficult injury history, who is very inconsistent, huge highs, huge lows. You put 10 years, that's a lot. We only live for 80, guys. We only have 80 years on this rock. So, that's 12.5% of your life. You gotta have Clay Bellinger in your life. Are you ready for that?
Yeah. coming to a Mets lineup
I don't
near
think
you,
so.
Cody Bellinger.
Not with the qualifying.
No, he's not.
I wouldn't be surprised to see the Mets. Jordan Montgomery, I think, is a name that Mets fans should be getting very familiar with. No qualifying offer attached. That's exactly the guy Cohen would go after. We need to rebuild that starting rotation. Even some of our smaller guys, like, so I say mean smaller, not in stature, but in value. David Peterson's going to miss 7 or 8 months with a hip injury, so he's not going to be back until probably mid-season next year. So you hear stuff like that, and you're like, all right, not that we didn't already need starting pitching, but now we really need starting pitching. So Jordan Montgomery, I think, is one to really watch for Mets fans.
I thought I saw someone say 6 years, 150 for Jordan Montgomery.
I'm okay with that.
Way bigger than I would ever thought a year ago.
He's damn good.
Free agency starts
now.
When? 5 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, guys,
yesterday. Who's our first sign?
I mean, who's the first big sign? Like, you're gonna have your random guy sign, but I think Cody Bellinger's a pretty good. Because I guess my things like Aaron Nola, I think might be a while because I think there's gonna be a lot of suitors and teams always need starting pitching. But I could see Cody Bellinger. I think that's a good guess, Carl. I feel like usually you see the kind of those position players that have a specific position. Obviously, those guys go first because it fills an immediate need. Where the more vague ones like Josh Hader or Nola or even Montgomery, they might take a while.
Yeah, I should have said that. Cody Bellinger's that's what I thought. The first should be our first.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I do not think it'll be Ohtani. It's just too complicated. There's so much money at stake. There's so much going on with it. And there's so many, in theory, so many suitors. You don't want to have it be too quick where you miss a suitor.
I've never signed a big free agent contract with a Major League Baseball team. A couple of my friends have, and here's what I've heard, is that the general vibe is you just want to know where you're going, and you want to know who's your team. You want to know spring. So there is a thing at some point. When is that? I think it's around the holidays.
Oh,
I think it's around December. I think it's when you start to know you're going to be around people and family. I think there's this period okay, once Thanksgiving gets going, I think that's kind of where guys between Thanksgiving
meetings
and Christmas is where guys really
winter meetings is the week after Thanksgiving typically, right? So you have that. And then you're absolutely right, Carl. You hear a lot of major leaguers say that, I just want to get this settled before the holidays, because, think about it too. That's when guys start to ramp up too. They ramp up their off season and, baseball players especially, everybody wants certainty in their life. You don't want to not know where you're going or not know where you're going to be not only next year, but for the next 5 years. You want to know where you're going to be. I think that's pretty human of anyone to want. Especially baseball players who kind of thrive on routine. They got to play every day. But think about what these guys have to do from a human level. Got to move your family. Got to have your wife be okay with this new city or girlfriend. You got to have the kids if you're older, and free agents typically are older. So you got to have your kids get ready and settle in a new school system. There's a lot that's involved. Obviously, and I'm not saying we should be playing violence for these guys making $100 million a year, over 5 years, whatever. But it's a lot that's involved. Yeah.
Still sucks. So next week, we sit down and have a conversation about the offseason. You think Cody Bellinger signed somewhere yet?
No, definitely not. I mean, I would never say a specific player. If the question is, when we sit down next week, is one of the top 50 free agents going to be signed by this time next week? Yes. One of the top 20 guys? Definitely in the next 2 weeks. I say in the next 2 weeks, 2 of the top 20 guys are signed.
Okay. Over under half a guy next week, top 20.
It's November 9th. I'm gonna say under. Take the under. I feel like this. What's happened? I feel like the free agency period has gotten longer and longer. You never. So when I was a kid in the 90s, you never saw free agents go into Christmas. If you were a free agent in January, something was fucking wrong. Now you see a lot of guys that don't sign until February, which you just never saw back in the day. So I'm in the process in my brain of almost thinking it goes longer now.
All right, my last question: who's your favorite free agent signing for the Mets history? Was the most jacked up you ever got as a fan? When you were jumping up and down in your Spider-Man underpants as a kid, going, "Can't believe we got him, Keith Hernandez."
No, Hernandez was a trade. Carter was a trade. Most of the Mets, even Howard Johnson, the Mets really didn't do a ton of free agent signings until later on. You know what's one I got really excited about as an adult? And I had season tickets at the time. And it was a guy I've always loved. And I was so excited that he was going to New York. It was Curtis Granderson.
Oh, that's a great pick. Curtis Granderson's awesome. He's from Chicago.
He seems like the best guy. I always admired his play. Like, I always loved him, even if it was a Yankee or on the Tigers. Or I always this is a guy that I would really want to root for. So when they signed him, and it was the Mets team, this was in the offseason between 13 and 14. The Mets offense was horrible. And it was the idea that we were getting anyone who could hit 20 home runs in a season was mind-blowing. So that's when I remember where I was. I was at a bar with my first wife in Queens. It popped up on the TV, and I stayed back. I had a few extra drinks in honor of my guy, the Grandy Man, coming to Queens. That was what I was really excited about. But think about the Mets though, Johan Santana, Mike Piazza. You go through the list, and almost all of them, even John Olerud, all of them were via trade. Free agent signings, the Mets typically didn't work out. Eddie Murray. Didn't work. A lot of those guys didn't work out. That was when I was excited as a kid because I always liked Eddie Murray. But Curtis Granderson was awesome. How about you? Was one for the Cubs?
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a similar one. An outfielder with speed and power, Alfonso Soriano. Because when he signed in 2007, that had put together this team with Mark DeRosa was a small piece. Ted Lilly was a guy that they had gotten. They had put together a nice roster. It was they have to get this. They have to get. He was the big piece. He was the huge. I think he was coming off a 40-40 season with Washington. The problem was he couldn't play second base. They didn't want him to play second base. But that was super exciting because I sat in my basement on my family's computer. We didn't have a laptop. We had just a big desktop in the basement. And I just hit an F5 on chicagosports.com waiting for Paul Sullivan to post because it was there was no Twitter. I mean, when I say sitting there and literally repeatedly hitting F5, it was reload page, reload, reload page. Doing that for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Lunatic stuff. I was home for college break. I remember. And just hitting refresh on that. And then when they signed him, running upstairs and being they did it, yelling at my parents, the Cubs signed Alfonso Soriano. That was a great time. That's a great time.
Back in the old days, before internet, you had, you got you find out, you read the transactions in the newspaper. Holy shit, the big free agents, you could watch your, the 2-minute sports broadcast on your local news and get some stuff you could obviously put on SportsCenter and stuff. But a lot of times you didn't find stuff out until the next day in the transaction. Oh shit, they traded for who? Oh, the Red Sox signed Andre Dawson? Oh, okay. It was just, you were surprised to see it. The Mets free agents, you go through the Mets, the best players of the Mets, especially in those great teams of the 80s, Bob Ojeda, trade. It was funny how so much of it was done via Kevin McReynolds, trade. So much of it was done via trade. Even Dave Cohn was a trade. All those things were all trades. They didn't dabble in the free agent market very much under Frank Cashen.
Interesting. Well, hopefully this year you guys.
We will. We'll go and get some guys. You're not going to see this thing where it's Verlander and sure. You're not going to see that. And probably for the best. But we'll hopefully get some guys to build around that rotation around guys like Senga, where we can actually put together. And then Jose Quintana was pretty good for us last year. Get 3 decent arms in there, and then I don't know. And I guess you're trying for that 7th, that 6th wildcard spot.
Yeah.
I guess.
Not a bad strategy. We'll see if you guys have anybody next time we talk. David Stearns has got his thing cooking.
I have confidence.
It's going to take him 2-3
years.
Have so, that was a nice thing when Theo was running the team and he came in. It was all right, I could just kind of turn my brain off. Whatever they're doing, I like it. Sounds good. That was an easy easy time as a baseball fan. I'm starting to get back there with Jed. I kind of really like the way the Cubs are operating. I mean, he's a cold-blooded dude. It kills me that David Ross is not the manager for the Cubs anymore. Like, that guy's awesome. Quick personal story. I mean, just this year, my buddy's throwing out the first pitch. I'm like, I've told these stories before, like Chicago programming, and like how I know David, and he's a really nice guy. And like, my buddy's throwing out the first pitches here, and we just like went down. I'm standing by the on deck circle, and like he came out of the dugout and like it was like, "Hey, Carl, hey," and like came over, gave me a hug, was like, We'll play our asses off tonight, man. Like, I think I posted the picture on Instagram. And he's like, how's your mom doing? I'm like, good. Because I introduced him my mom to him before a game in 2016. And he was like, hey, hold on a second. He like goes over, gets a ball for her. He's like, Lester warmed up with this ball. So hopefully,
that's very cool.
What I mean? Yeah. He like made a comment, was like, we end up being like good and like winning this thing. Like, that'd be a nice thing to keep or whatever. And like, on like, no joke, like on the piano in my house is like the ball and the picture of my mom with David Ross. Like, he's just such a good dude, and I like him a lot. And I've met a lot of different people across his game, and he is definitely by far the most warm and special and friendly and memorable and all the stuff. And so it's crazy that they fired him. It's crazy that they fired him, and it just tells me that like Jed's not messing around. They're gonna unload. They're gonna spend so much money. They're gonna do something crazy. Like, and maybe they don't end up improving, but like he's gonna be making offers left and right, and
I wonder where he's gonna end up.
So that's better than nothing.
No,
Ohtani,
Ross.
I hope with Milwaukee.
You know where he should end up? It's not gonna happen because they have a manager right now. He shouldn't have to move cities.
I mean, he'd be perfect for the White Sox.
Sure would. If I was Jerry If I was the White Sox do everything wrong.
He would not stay in
That'd
Chicago.
Be wild, right?
He would not stay in Chicago. Dude, you'd have to have some thick skin and some big balls.
He's got the balls
to go take that job.
I can see him. That would be something.
I can see him coming back to do it.
I just think the White Sox manager Pedro Grufol is awful. He's just terrible.
Poopy.
And what they keep him around? Why? So you can fire him in July? Like, what are we doing? Like, they're not gonna.
Yeah, Chris Getz doesn't like him at all. Chris Getz
doesn't like I don't blame him. Like, what are we doing? Like, why go this charade? So he's a manager for 70 more games when we all know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen at the All-Star break next year. He's going to get fired. Like, it's no shit. And it's like, well, just peel the Band-Aid off now. Like, admit you made a mistake. Admit he was a bad. And it's not even your mistake. It's your inherited mistake. And then bring in Ross, who would be perfect for a team like that. Give them some personality, kick him ass a little bit. I don't know. I'm not in charge.
Nope. No, you're not. Neither am I. This is the Barstool Baseball off-season show. We're just chopping up the big off-season.
A lot of it, yeah. I don't know as much on a podcast before, but it's just where we are. It's November fucking 9th. I don't know. We don't know. We're just guessing. We're just speculating.
And it's so early in the hot stove that like we're still filling. Like I feel like we're just gathering logs for the fire for the hot stove right now. It's not even that cold out, guys. It's not even that cold out.
I know. I'm
just saying, like, as far as hot stove purposes are concerned, 55 degrees with a slight breeze, crisp in the air. Go get yourself a warm apple cider.
I don't want to deal with the
like
cold.
Okay, you know what? I'll say it. You're a skinny guy. The cold's gonna get you a little bit more.
I hate winter.
I
hate the winter. I hate it so much.
How thin is your blood? Do you bleed easily?
I mean, I grew up in New Hampshire. I mean, I can handle winter. I mean, I can handle it. I just hate it.
How do you say no like that? Did you hear that? Yeah. That no sound. That's not saying. That's a sound you make that means no. It's not saying no. That's just a sound. What is that?
I don't. My voice is very weird. I don't know. So,
you are a special guy. You know what? Let me tell you something. I have something I want to tell you. All right. So, obviously, I'm not the best editor or producer in the least bit. I've tried. I've put these things together, and so I've tried to learn some like different tricks and gimmicks to make this thing sound better. And one of them, a producer in Chicago recommended this like AI software that makes our voice sound better. And like it can help me sometimes because my vocal range is within like a certain spectrum, and like it doesn't really work with Castellani. It sometimes works with Hubs, but he like his echoing kind of fucks. It makes you sound like T-Pain. And like I think I've published an episode or two before on accident with you uploaded and enhanced. And like I've gone through all these machinations to like try and figure out a way to like, and I can't, there's literally no effect I can put on your voice. Like the sound, like the software is like, that's not a real, they don't know if you're male or if you're female or if you're music. No, seriously, there's like a thing where it's like, they don't know like if it's, or if you're music, I'm saying. Like sometimes they think you're a song. Beautiful song. With all of the frequencies.
The closest comp I have is like Jay Leno, like, Jay Leno, you know, we'll make more tonight, yo. But Jay Leno has this thing though where he'll then go into like a deeper registry, which I kind of do too. And I can't mimic Jay Leno's deeper registry, but I know I do it, so it goes up and down like that. It's very weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I was born, I lived in Long Island until I was 9. And then I moved to New Hampshire, and my mom has a very thick Boston accent, just like ka, pak, all those, So, and I grew up with this weird thing, or I don't know why my voice is what it is. I also get excited easy. I don't know what it is. It's very, very bizarre.
There's similarities here. I have no control over the way I sound, and people think I like make my accent up. Like when I do these videos and stuff for Barstool, I have to yell on the microphone. I can't hear myself, so when I get excited and I yell, like my Chicago short A and all that, like that just like jumps to the front of the line. And it's not on purpose. Like there's been time my job before this when I was in sales, I had to wear a suit and I'd have to stand up and I'd have to present to a room full of people, and you'd go through that bullshit, but they'd say like how I am. If I'm sitting around, I'm like talking with my buddies and you get animated, you get excited. I'm like, I have no control over it. I have none. I have absolutely no control over it.
This is really what it
is. Like, it is what it is. I just thought
when I was doing sales.
It's funny that like.
Hi, my name is Chris Klemmer. I am here to. I would do this whole voice, and it's not a human being. It's like a weird like professional thing. This is me. Like when I get squeaky and I get wild, my hand. Then I'm being like a real. That's who I am, like in my soul, my belly. When I was doing sales for 20 years, I was play acting.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, that's not a happy spot to be. But you know what? Like, I like being in sales. I like working with sales. I liked it.
But I was lying if I you can't. If you were yourself, like it was not professional. But like whatever, whatever. That's, but I'm much happier being me, talking to you about baseball and things I love and actually love instead of pretending I love educational software or check writing software. Like no one loves that.
You're right. That's fair. Though I will give sales credit, like the industry as a whole. I do, and I did like knowing where I was every day and what I had to do and where you're at. Like, there's no bullshit in sales. Like, you can't walk around a sales job and be like, well, I don't like this guy, and this guy's me. I don't like. It's just like, just go fucking sell. And like the people who sell do well, and you're and then you guys can build your culture together and have fun with your friends and do all that shit. Like, that was a good time. That was a really good time. Because then it's like the guys who aren't good. It's like the guys that complain a lot also weren't good at the job.
The guys that bitch the most are the worst. It never failed. It was always out. And I was never the best sales guy. I was always like in that like next tier of like being okay to good. I was always, no matter what I sold or what company I worked for, I was always in that tier where I was never really at risk of losing my job, but I was never the top sales guy ever.
Yeah, be the top sales guy too. Those guys are just weirdos. Yeah. You're born. You're just the guys that get up early and go in and like get ready for the day at 5:00 in the morning, and they eat the egg whites and they're doing the sit-ups Patrick Bateman style. Like, you're a weirdo, and you know who you are. And
if you are that good, then I also love. I talked about this in a blog I wrote about the show The Bear, which takes place in Chicago, which is a wonderful show. I love the show so much, and it's about just having pride in your work and like what it means to work, what it means to feel good about what you do. And I don't care whatever you do for a living. If you take pride and you care about it and you love it, that is awesome, because that's what we all aspire to do. And I love that it shows that something we don't, or at least I don't think about a lot. I order food at a restaurant, it comes out, I eat it. The care and thought and preparation that goes into that by a lot of different people that work really hard, it just makes you look at something differently. That's all you can ask for from a television show. It makes you look at the world a little differently and care about people a little bit more. It's all you want.
Is there a recommendation? I haven't watched it yet.
Yes,
I've been saving
watch The Bear on FX. It's very good. It's on Hulu too.
Well said, Klemmer.
Oh, Carl, you froze out on me. Might be time to end the show. If it's just me here talking.
Battery's
You've been watching Barstool Baseball.
This is the Barstool Baseball Show.
I will text you now.
Well said, Klemmer. This is the Barstool Baseball Show. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Klemmer. We'll talk to you guys next week.